Hey everyone, hope you all come back. We're gonna start with the next speaker right now. He is Marcha. Here, Ruby is from Taiwan for DeepL. He will share about translating XML and Epub using ChatGPT. Welcome, Marcha.
Hi everyone. So talk is not AI centric. It's just a wrapper. So I use ChatGPT as the buzzword to get into RubyConf Taiwan. Sorry. So my name is Mark, and I go by the name La 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 on internet. I use it for GitHub and Twitter handle. I'm a backend engineer at GitLab, and currently I'm looking for someone to remove my real pull requests. Yeah, it's been sitting there idle for 5 months and no one is taking a look at it. So if you are a contributor, please let me know. I belong to this hobby group called Otaku. It's an otaku group. We make documentaries and things for anime reviews. And early this year, we decided to do some research on Masaki Yuasa, anime director. I recommend his film called Mind Game. It's really trippy. And to do the research, it just so happened that there's a magazine called Eureka. They publish a special issue on Yuasa, and it contains lots of valuable interviews. And of course, in my group, we want to read it, do the research. But we can't read Japanese, so we need to rely on machine translation. The EPUB book is a collection of HTML pages, and HTML is kind of XML. But so we need an XML translation service. I found two of them. One is DeepL. I think everyone is familiar with that. It's feature rich. It costs money. It doesn't accept Taiwanese credit card. It's a shame. The other one is called Everyone's Auto Translation, and it's a Japanese-based service. It's free, so if you ever want to translate Japanese things, you should try it. So I decided to write a translator using both services, and one for DeepL, one for one's translation. And as you can see, it's spaghetti code. There are lots of if-else statements and many similar functions. One is for DeepL, one is for the other one. And there's no test, and it's the opposite of dry. I just copy paste for one to the other, and I ignored object-oriented design. But it works. I was able to translate a magazine to Chinese, and we were happy. But then I thought maybe I can turn this spaghetti code to a gen. Or maybe I can turn it into two gens. My idea is that I can have one gen which will focus on translating XML, and then I can have another gen which will handle the translation of EPUB books. So now I will be talking about my XML translation gen, which is Natsukantou. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. I got the name from when I visited RubyConf back in 2017. I visited a place called Arashiyama, Kyoto. And I ate a sweet called Natsukantou. It's a sweet. And what it does is it takes I think it's a grapefruit. You take out the center, you turn the center into a jelly. You insert the jelly back into. So it's really similar to XML translation, right? You take out the text, you translate the text, then you reinsert the text back into the XML structure. Yes. So that's why I named my gen Natsukantou. But I gave a presentation in RubyConf as a as a lightning talk. And after lightning talk, my Japanese friend told me that I have no idea what Natsukantou is. Without the kanji, I don't know it's a sweet. So the moral of the story is that if you want to use a foreign language to name something, you better consult the expert in that language. What's done is done, so I will stick to that. Okay, so let's start. First, I want to talk about the core API, which here is would understand. My goal is to maximize the customization of the gems in order to improve translation. I want to allow the user to choose different translation engine and to choose different plugins or filters. As you can see, you will type this. From the top, there's the source text. You will be passing down layer by layer, different filter layers, and filter A and filter B, they can both modify the text if they want. Once it reaches the bottom layer, it will be translated by language model, and the translated text will be passed back layer by layer. And the filter can also modify the return translated result. To represent this in code, it will look like this. We will call this the middleware pattern, and I'm sure if you write Rails, you will be very familiar because Rails uses Rack, and Rack is the middleware for handling web requests. Here I have one layer called glossary and another layer called DeepL. Once this is set up, I can just do call, passing the XML and the language you want to translate. And then you will return the translated XML back to me. So why are the middlewares useful? I want to use handle Ruby markup middleware of the example. People might know, so I will introduce the idea of HTML Ruby annotation first. HTML Ruby annotation is not related to Ruby, the programming language, at all. It is a markup you can have, so you can play text on top of other text. Here I put the pronunciation of the two-word kanji above the kanji itself, and then this will be displayed like this. But it will be the problem for translation because for translators, they will translate tag by tag installation. So they will think that I need to translate just this single character and also this single character, but not as a phrase. And this will result in a worse translation. So how can we improve the translation? My goal is to flatten the B tag. So when we have this, we want to only take the two words here and join them and flatten them as one single tag here. And this is the middleware for doing that. The middleware starts with the initial method, which all classes do. It will take an add parameter, and that's the common parameter for the middleware architecture, so we can ignore it for now. That's configuration phase. And after that, now we are in the translation phase. All the middlewares have a method, and it will be passed in an in argument, and contains everything we need for the translation. For example, I will access the DOM XML DOM here, and I will say I want to get every single Ruby XML tag in a CSS class. And for each of the Ruby tag, I will first remove all the RP tag the one we don't want here. We will remove those. And then I will replace the inner text with what's left. So the result after this middleware is that we have this latent XML tag. And once we pass this latent XML tag to DeepL, we get a better translation. And that's why translation using middleware, why it's useful. In the world, everyone knows Ruby and knows write middleware configuration and knows how to use my gems. But we don't live in the ideal world. So we need to cater for non-Rubyists. So now I'll talk about the user interface design for my gems. When we think about command line programs, we often think of using flags and arguments. They are fine for small programs with a small number of arguments, but that's fine for bigger programs like image magic. I can never remember what the argument there for image magic, and I'll have to always look at the documentation. And I think my translation gen is similar. There are too many dynamic elements there, and it will be hard to use it just by using arguments. So I think a wizard is more appropriate for my use case. It will basically help non-Rubyans to generate my middleware. And then using that .rb file, we can translate. So my program is divided into two phases. The first phase is to do the configuration. I will ask the user to choose which middleware, which translation engines they want. And then for each of the middle layer, we will look through each of the initial arguments and ask the user to input arguments. Once I have every configuration, then I can use ERB to generate the .rb file. Then on the second phase, I will do the actual translation. I will ask for the language to translate, and eventually actually translate the XML. So So first, I will call my Natsukantou gen with the XML HTML file. First, actually, if you know Ruby, no, it will give you more complicating if you know. Here, I choose ChatGPT and I enter the access token, and I enter a CSS path for selecting what to translate. Here, I select the middleware I want to use. You can select two of them. Select one. And it will say, do you want to save the .rb file? I say yes, save it. Now they will ask you which language you translate from and to. And last, you will say what file you want to save the translation. So this is a simple execution of my program. And the result is that Ruby Haiku is translated from So that's my user interface design. How can we implement the user interface? I first need to ask the question that how does the program know which middlewares are available for the user to choose from? I could implicitly scan a directory for all of the middlewares, but I feel that a developer wants to develop their own middleware, then I would need to know about the directory in gen as well, which is complicated. So I chose a more explicit approach. I ask the user, the author of middleware, to always register their middleware and visualization by using a method I made called autoload and register. Basically a wraparound autoload, but you can also register it either as a translator or as a middleware. Now we know what middleware are there to choose from. I need to ask for each of them what arguments I need to ask the user to input. What, say, for example, they need to input the access token. So each of the middleware always have an initialize method, and they can take different arguments. For example, here, I will need to ask the user what ChatGPT says token, and it's a string. And what's its translate by section, which is also a string. Initially, I thought that I need to use RBS or Sobit to achieve it. RBS and Sobit are two better known type annotation system. Eventually, I found that I can also just use YARN. YARN is a documentation system. It provides type information, so I can say it returns a string. And there's also documentation. And this is the most important because if you want to write a wizard to ask the user, you must tell the user what you're asking for. And we always need to give them the full documentation for they to know. The YARN thing for beginners. First, you need to give it a file path. Then you will use the file. Then you start looking through the YARN registry. Here I'm looking for a path called DeepL. And in step 2, I have a path now. I will look through its method and look for a method called initialize. Now I have an initialize method. I will call text parents. So what it does is it basically grab all the parents you have written as a comment here as text. And on the next line, I will reject the app because app is always required and the user doesn't have to input it, so we can ignore it. That leaves us with 4 parents. Then, did you see any limitations on my wizard approach? First, the middleware author must always write YARN comments wizard to work. Second, they must always name my first argument as app. Too lazy to make it up. And third, all other arguments must be written in keyboard arguments. It could be implemented to accept ordinary arguments, but I'm too lazy to do that. Lastly, I want to provide simple building type counting for string and number. Okay, so now I have collected the information. So how can we ask the user for it? I use a gem called TTY prompt. It provides a user-friendly interface. For example, a single select this, or multi-select this, or default values. Default value is very useful because we provide a sensible default, so the user doesn't have to type everything down. And here I'm asking the user to choose one translation engine. Basically gives it hash of all the translators I have available. Then you will ask, for example, John earlier, give you a list to choose from. Let's try letters. So then once I have a translator, I will call a method called ask-initialize parameters. And why it does this? Just print out the parameter name and the documentation, and then ask you to put input. And that's for choosing a language layer. Now I could do the same, but for filters, the middlewares. It's pretty much similar, except that you can select multiple middleware instead of one. And for each of them, I also do an ask initialized parameters. Before asking the user for initialized parameters, tell TTY prompt what the default values are, and if it's required or optional. To know if it's required or optional, I need to first get the default value from the yard text here, and I have a else statement for knowing which condition it is. For example, if this default is a string or nil, which corresponds to this kind of arguments, then I know this argument is optional. Therefore, I just say, hey, it's optional. If default value is something else, so for example, a column 1, then we have a default value. So I can set a default value by setting a column value. If there's absolutely nothing, so it's actually a nil, for example, like this, then we know that the user has to enter something. Otherwise, we cannot go to a step, so it's required. And once I have this hash, I pass hash to TTY prompt. Then you will start asking the user to input arguments. And after all of this, everything I've collected everything from the user. This is the ERB loops all the things I've got up to the configuration file. I will, well, this is a string of the middleware header, and I look through each of the middleware. I will print out the argument name or the name of the middleware first, and then the argument name, and lastly, all the user can input into the all the arguments. This ERB file will be stored in the middleware configuration file. So before, after. And with this file, we could use it later. So the user doesn't have to re-enter everything every time they want to translate something. They can just specify the speed flag and pass in a middleware file. Then you will just use it to do the translation. Okay, that's all of the 4 parts. Okay. So part 3, ChatGPT, buzzword. I initially didn't think of ChatGPT because I thought it handle XML structure, but I was wrong. It did pretty well. And my first prompt is like this: tell me to translate XML from English to French, maintaining XML structure, and it works fine. Whenever ChatGPT upgrades, it becomes chattier and chattier, and it will not just an XML, it will say, oh, here is your XML, which is really annoying. So I have to upgrade my here I have this very long sentence saying that you are only allowed to return translated XML and nothing else, and then have it in all caps. And it works currently, but I feel it's not really elegant. So many of you are from here, you know a better solution, let me know. And I want to go on a tangent here and talk about substitute glossary. So a glossary file is commonly provided by the user. It's a dictionary of specific translation which you want to use. It can often be in a tab delimited format, or it can be an array of array. And DeepL does support glossary, but just not from Chinese to Chinese. So how can we emulate this functionality? What I came up with is to use GSOP, substitute all of the text with the one in the glossary, and then wrap it with a skip tag. Once it's done, I can DeepL to translate everything except one in skip text. And that works in DeepL, but how about ChatGPT? It doesn't have notion of skipping. So this is my instruction for when encountering skip text, translated it. Now it's not very good. For example, here I asked to translate to Chinese, but it would not skip this part. The funny thing is that I would, hey, you didn't skip the skip text, and then you will become smarter. You will skip it here, but you also can chat here, so it doesn't. It's not bad. Let's have this in ChatGPT 3.5. For GPT-4, and you will understand my instruction, but it's expensive, so I'm still using 3.5. But you know how to solve this? Let me know. Another problem is that XML might not fit in a prompt. Some chapters in an EPUB book can be too long. So my solution is to translate paragraph by paragraph. You just provide a CSS path, and you will iterate through the XML nodes. There are some caveats, of course. For example, it might not be optimal in notes. You may lose some context because it doesn't know the previous paragraph. And not everyone knows about CSS. Even if you know, you might write a path, you might miss out some of the elements. And also you have to open the EPUB file to know proper path, CSS path to use. So I don't have a solution for that. I'm just waiting for large language models to learn. Okay, so now the last part. I borrowed the idea from a Java epub-translator library. They have an app called Interlacer. So I will combine two XML together. You can compare the translation side by side. Made it. Each of the translation will have a length attribute, so the CSS can style it properly. I need to choose dependencies for the ideal EPUB after the ideal XML process and the middleware library. So first, EPUB gems. There are so many of them. And they also have very similar names. The EPUBer, the EPUB, the EPUB boot. So I think there are 15 of them. I looked through each of the repositories and see which one is still active and which one is unmaintained. Oh, if you ever need to do EPUB development, you can use this. And then for those which are active, I look for how many downloads are there on rubygems.org. And if it handles read or if it write, and for XML is using. It came down to 3 gens. One is called epub. I didn't use epub because it has too many dependencies. For example, it depends on Sinatra. The epub gen is the most downloaded gen. I tried it for a bit, but I just don't like the interface too much. That makes me to choose epub parser and epub maker. They are written by IT Makoto. I just like the API because it's modular. Like you have the reader and the writer in separate gens, actively maintained. Also, it's pretty on GitLab. The XML processing, there are also 3 common libraries. Everyone knows about Notebookery. Depends on Deep XML2. There are also Olga and VXML. They are both pure Ruby implementations, and VXML is building Ruby library. I choose Olga at the end because I thought that it's a pure Ruby implementation, and maybe there are some benefits in the future if I want to install it on Windows. So, because it's hosted on GitLab, so you make a new gen. My decision was proven to be, say, it doesn't really matter because later I realized that each maker depends on the whole period anyways, eliminating the benefit. And also that I don't know if it's still an issue to install the whole period on Windows. Maybe it's not a blocker anymore. And Olga does have few bugs when you manipulate those. Lastly, it's no longer hosted on GitLab. But there's still something good which came out of my decision because I did find a bug and I submitted a request and it's fixed. So at least I contributed to the open source community. Lastly, I need to choose a middleware. Most famous one is just called middleware. 17 million downloads. It's written by Mitchell Moto. He's the co-founder of it. But it's only maintained since 2012. There is a fork for middleware XP. There are some improvements, but it's effectively in 2017. Last year's most recent fork, I'm not going to pronounce, but it has more bug fixes. Its last activity was in 2007. That means that it didn't work well on Ruby 3, so I submitted a patch, merged. So it means it's actively maintained. So I recommend that. Another thing I found just this week is that the middleware was archived 2 months ago. And I don't think people will choose the most recent fork here because the name doesn't feel inviting. So I was hoping that I can ask Mitchell to consider passing the maintainer to another maintainer or at least link the fork. So we yeah, that's it. Okay, that's all. And summary, what's my future plan? I'm thinking about supporting Anthropic or other large language models. I'm also thinking of an alternative implementation for glossary. Instead of doing GSAP first, I will just wrap the target with a tag. And once it's translated, then I search for a tag and replace it after. Then I don't have to skip those already translated things. So that's my plan. To improve the error handling and to reduce dependency, maybe consider moving back to the Pokiri. That's all. Questions?
Okay, thank you so much about your sharing. I like your pen. It's so cute. Yeah. Anyone have question for him? I think you have a lot of questions for him, right? Um, try. Do you have question for him? Yeah.
So yeah, for this gem to like actually work, it needs to be a properly formatted of file. Like the book needs to be in EPUB, not like any with an image that doesn't have any text associated. So it needs to have a text. It needs to have text.
Oh, are you talking about translating a mega EPUB books?
Oh yes, yeah. Yeah. Like, have you tried anything like?
No, it's only for text.
Okay, yeah. So, do you have like anything to without?
No, I guess they will require some large language
Oh,
model that image support and recognizing the oh no,
it will require sophisticated OCR, but
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it will be very, very difficult.
Okay, thank you for your question. Anyone have a question now? We still have like 1 minute. Okay.
The episode, but the episode.
Like, for example, maybe summary of the previous session. ChatGPT.
Yeah, I think that's possible. But for the ChatGPT API, no, you always pass every single, uh, you pass the whole history every time you want. So the prompt will have number of characters.
Actually, you're already doing that.
Yeah. Well, I want to maximize the thing I translate to save money, so I never try to save space for previous font, but I think it's theoretically possible. Yeah.
Much for your question. Anyone? Question will have like 2 minutes. 2 minutes left. Anyone?
It's fine. Yeah, please try it if you ever want to translate the EPUB or HTML. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for your sharing.
Thank you.
Okay, so right now we're gonna take like a tea time break. We will go back before 3:30. We're gonna move to the next speaker. Thank you so much.